Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Well, at least one entitled lady got told off. So many don't. Nice work by today's OP. We'll tell you more right after a short pause. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. I'm a nanny, not a lifeguard. Alright, so this happened this past summer. For context, I was working as a live-in nanny for two of my cousins, 8-year-old male, 13-year-old female, to help pay my tuition. My aunt bought us all pool passes, and since we're from a rural town, we went there pretty much every day. I have a lot of stories from there, because I guess the only moderate, fit college students at the pool were all lifeguards. Cast: 8M is my 8-year-old male cousin, 13F is my 13-year-old female cousin, Karen is a crazy lady, and me will be me, of course. Story: I was at the pool on an incredibly warm, for my area of the Midwest at least, day. It seemed like every child under the age of 15 in our entire town had made the same decision as us. We'd been there about 2 hours, and I was forcing them to reapply sunscreen. Both are ginger, so if they burn, they burn. Suddenly, this woman walks up to me with her 3 small children. None of them could have been more than 10. Now, I paid her no mind, though her shrill voice seemed pretty loud. I even compared to the children running around screaming. I was applying sunscreen and had a large glop of it in my hand when suddenly I feel someone grab me and spin me around. Now, I have severe social anxiety in most cases, but I also have my mother's temper when provoked. Karen: I said, excuse me. Me: well, that was rude. I started to turn back to 8M, but she grabbed me again. My cousins weren't too happy about that. 8M is a devil child. I was trying to teach him discipline, but my aunt and uncle had let him become a royal pain, biting people when he didn't get his way, scratching people till they bled, etc. And I could tell he was about to do something, so I asked 13F to finish his sunscreen while I dealt with Karen. Karen: my children need sunscreen. Put it on. Me: excuse me? Karen: you heard me. I said put it on. Me: look, lady, it's not my fault if you forgot to bring sunscreen for your kids. Karen: what the hell kind of pool hires pathetic wastes of space like you? Me: and what kind of mother sets this kind of example for 3 small children? I'll admit I mouthed off, but I was always taught that respect has to be earned, even by elders. I really thought Karen was gonna slap me or something at this point. Instead, she got super quiet and calm. I think she was trying to be threatening, but she really wasn't. Karen: okay, I'm going to give you one last chance. We need sunscreen now. Well, I still had that glob of sunscreen in my hand, so I thought, what the hell? Karen wanted sunscreen, she was gonna get sunscreen. So I walked towards the 4 of them, and instead of bending down to put it on one of the children, I patted Karen on the head, getting as much of it in her hair as I could, and walked away with my cousins to enjoy the rest of our day by the pool. Petty, I know, but I don't regret it one bit. And our second story. I don't want to see your name on this list again. This story didn't personally happen to me, but it was told by someone I trust. I fully believe it to be true, but some details are slightly altered to protect privacy. A friend of mine is retired now, but back in the day, he did internal audits for a large bank. This story takes place about 30 years ago when networked computers were less common, and paperwork tended to be compiled manually. Bank managers had to submit various reports to their regional offices showing what their branches were up to, and the regional offices would occasionally send out auditors to go through the records and make sure everything was in compliance. One report that had to be filed monthly was a list of any employees who were in arrears on their own loans. Employees who had trouble managing their own credit were considered to be more at risk of stealing, fraud, or other financial crimes, so I guess the bank wanted to keep track of anyone who may fall into that category. My friend's team is doing an audit at a particular branch, going through the records and looking for any discrepancies. They find a big one. The manager of this branch had been behind on a number of loans he held with the bank, but he'd been leaving his own name off the report. More records are pulled, and they start looking at everything the guy has ever filed and comparing it to other records. The manager had started doing everything correctly, including himself on the report fairly regularly. As a point about 10 years previous, it suddenly stops, despite the spotty loan repayment continuing for years. Bosses of bosses are called. It's looking like we may have stumbled upon years of falsified records and possibly more serious fraud. The manager's definitely getting fired, and depending on what else they find, could be looking at some serious criminal charges. Finally, they call the manager in to show what they found and ask for an explanation. The manager produces a letter from someone higher up in the bank. Basically, when he started, the manager was just a little too free with his spending and didn't make his monthly loan payments a top priority. His boss wrote a letter saying that having the manager of a bank branch at the top of the list of unpaid loans was an embarrassment. If he wanted to keep his job, he better make sure that his name never appeared on that report again. He was supposed to sort out all of his financial affairs, but the manager said he interpreted the instruction literally and simply stopped including his own name. It took years before anyone noticed. In the end, the investigation found no other signs of record tampering or financial crime. No one really believed that he actually thought what he was doing was allowed, but the whole thing was just ambiguous enough to give plausible deniability. By the point everything was discovered, the manager had his finances in good order and he was pretty close to retirement. The whole thing was just sort of waved away as being more trouble than it was worth to deal with, and the manager didn't see any real repercussions. I'm imagining the manager calmly sitting in the middle of a room while everyone loses their crap around him, knowing that he has the piece of paper. Karen ends up getting arrested. This happened to me when I was 18. I just bought my first car about a week earlier and was driving over to my then-girlfriend's house. As I was driving along the road, in front of a row of terraced houses, a door opens and a kid darts out the door. Not knowing if they were planning on stopping or not, I slammed my brakes, stopping dead. The kid had turned and carried on along the pavement, so apparently wasn't heading into the road. Anyway, in my sudden stopping, I really didn't give a crap what was behind and got rear-ended. Nothing too serious, both cars drivable, just bent bumpers. The woman in the car behind was in her late 30s, came and steaming out of the car screaming that I could have killed her and her kid. She was alone in the car, so no idea where the kid came from. Being 18 and having only had my car a week, I just went right to the formalities of exchanging info. EB wouldn't even entertain that idea and kept shouting about how I better effing pay her for the damage and emotional distress, otherwise she'll call her husband, who's a lawyer, and he'll come and F me up. I then pointed out that we needed to exchange info, and threatening me will just mean I ring the police. Mentioning the police really set her off into a tantrum about my attempted murder of her and her kid. Again, no kid there. I missed most of it because I was on the phone talking to the dispatcher. As soon as the police turned up, it instantly switched from ranting and raving to running up to the officers in floods of tears about this 18-year-old guy bullying a poor mother after causing her to crash. The officer spoke to us both, ran our details, and wouldn't you believe it, her car had no MOT, mandatory safety test here in the UK, that set her off screaming at the officers about them being wrong and needing to speak to the SGT. I completed my mandatory breathalyzer and showed a whole 0.00, and the officer took down my details. The EB, however, was busy screaming at the officers that their machine was wrong and how dare they accuse her of drunk driving. She got arrested for failing to provide a sample and in the process of the arrest got a resisting arrest tacked on. Once they got her in the van and arranged a tow for her car since she wouldn't be moving it, the officer came back and gave me all of her details and said they'd put mine against the log so her insurance company could find it out, but she couldn't. Her insurance paid out for all my damage, plus some medical because I was damn sore a few days later. I was called to be a witness in court. She got a 1-year driving ban and a 500-pound fine for the failure to provide a sample and resisting arrest. So in summary, rather than provide me with her name, address, and insurance carrier, she instead got banned from driving, a fine, and had to provide me with her name, address, and insurance carrier. And yes, her lawyer husband didn't help after all. You wonder how these people even hold down a job. Maybe they can switch personalities or something. And our last story. Cement revenge. I saw a post on here from about a year ago about how a guy reinforced his mailbox to stop his neighbor from running it over, and it reminded me of something my dad did to our a-hole neighbors years ago. When I was little, our next-door neighbors were the biggest a-holes. They constantly messed with us, insulted us, threw garbage on our house, etc. One thing they used to do was knock over these wooden poles we had in our grass, the part that separates our houses, with the bumper of their SUV, and drive through our grass to get to their driveway. And when my dad would confront them, they would always tell us off and say, "Sue me." That happened a lot, and my dad waited till they were gone on vacation and dug all the poles out, then made the holes really big and proceeded to fill them all with big bags of concrete, then put in new longer poles, put the grass back, and waited. Well, when they got back, it wasn't but a few days later, we hear a big bang and go outside to see the back of their SUV all jacked up. Our neighbor proceeds to lose his crap, saying my dad had to pay for the damage, and my dad just smiled and said, "Sue me," and walked back inside. They were still a-holes, but damn, that was still pretty funny. I know a couple more stories about them, but I don't know if anybody'd be interested in them. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.